way I could achieve normalcy was to forget about the evacuation and work diligently to get on with my life. To speak or even to think of those times meant to revisit what had happened, and that was too painful to consider. The penalty I paid for being silent for years, even to myself, seems perplexing even now. I complied and endured, albeit begrudgingly, but never had the nerve to fully break out of those self-imposed barbed wire fences built around my experiences in the camps. For most of my life, I was afraid to deal with those years of repressed shame and anger, and the unknown depth of those feelings. As I reflect on all that happened, I am reminded of a book, The Trial, by Franz Kafka. In this story, a man is accused of some crime about which he is unclear. The elements of the trial are fearful and unpredictable, and it is difficult to foresee the conclusion of the ordeal. I, too, had a sense of guilt for a crime I had supposedly committed, but I never understood what that crime was. My 3 children had to discover for themselves what the Japanese-American internment was about. I kept a few relics from that era, such as the 3 one-gallon jars of shells I gathered from the grounds of Tule Lake Camp. These would stimulate occasional conversations, but I matter-of-factly told the same safe anecdotes over and over again. As a parent, I did not want to show my children how vulnerable I felt at that time, nor did I want to get into the emotional part of my experience that could lead me to tears. In 1967, when my oldest child, Martha, tried to write a research paper on the internment, she could not find a single book that mentioned it. But a few years later, books and films such as A Farewell to Manzanar finally broke the silence. This is how my children and the rest of the public began to learn about this regrettable chapter in American history. More recently, the bestseller Snow Falling on Cedars by David Guterson, and the subsequent film, showed the evacuation of the first group of Japanese from a fictional island in Washington state. As I watched the part of the movie when the FBI searched the home of a Japanese-American family who were later forced to evacuate under armed U.S. soldier escorts, I broke down and wept. Vivid memories of my own experience swept over me. When I was 74 years old, I was invited to participate in a writing class and began writing about those war years. The dam broke loose when emotions and tears I had repressed for decades burst through, at times seemingly uncontrollable. At last, I was telling my story, a Nisei no longer willing to be silent. Now, as I near my 80th birthday and the completion of my book in 2005, my tears come more easily, and with them understanding and acceptance. I weep for all Japanese Americans who could not acknowledge that it was all right to be angry and confused about our identity in the face of the mass rejection by American society. At the same time, I am profoundly grateful for the open-minded, compassionate, and humane fellow citizens who helped Japanese Americans make the difficult transition back to normal life. I yearn for the day when the general American public will read, listen, and understand the implications of what the United States did to Japanese Americans, and what we must do differently and far better in today's world torn by terrorism and war. Chapter 1. An Island in Darkness. In the midst of the complicated jumble of waterways and islands of Puget Sound, there is a slice of rural America called Vashon Island, just a 20-minute ferry ride from Seattle. In the 1920s, Vashon had large-scale industrial logging, substantial greenhouse operations, and farms specializing in diverse products such as poultry, dairy, vegetables, and berries. Today, Vashon is home for thousands of people commuting to work in Seattle and Tacoma. Vashon may be only a few water miles from 2 large cities, but it is protected from their influence by a saltwater channel that is more than 600 feet deep. Building a bridge across these waters has been studied many times.